My Fulbright Award took me to the East Coast for 4 months and to the West Coast for 4.5 to 5 months. I was at Yale University on the East Coast in Connecticut, and I was at the University of California, Berkeley in California on the West Coast. I'm a philosopher who works in the area of social and political theory. I know very, very little about theology or the philosophy of religion. Part of a new project I'm working on made me think that it would be a good idea to talk to theologians and philosophers of religion. California, I was attached to the Center for Science, Technology and Society. This is one of, I think, only 3 or 4 of its kind in the US. There's none of its kind in Europe, at least there wasn't when I was applying. That was part of the reason why I wanted to go to the US. I felt there was a level of pride in the institution that was really admirable and isn't always evident in Irish society. I think I've always known about the Fulbright program, at least for a long time. But a few years ago, a colleague of mine in the School of Philosophy in UCD had a Fulbright Award and came back glowing from his time. At some point into my stint as head of school, I thought it would make sense to apply for a Fulbright, particularly because the project I was working on was pushing me in certain directions, and the people I thought would be helpful for me to work with were in the US. And it just seemed that the right time for me to apply. It was clear to me from the very beginning that I would bring my family with me. I have spent every 6 or 7 years, I have spent a year in some country or other on sabbatical, that is for research purposes. And my family, which comprises my husband and 1 child, a daughter, has always come with me. The experience of living in the States, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, was surprisingly positive for us as a family, quite apart from my personal experiences as a researcher. I hadn't expected it to be quite so wonderful for everybody. I think it's amazing that the 3 of us, in 3 different ways, had an absolutely life-changing time. Well, if anybody is thinking of applying for a Fulbright Award, I would recommend thinking well in advance about why exactly they want to go to the US, why the US specifically, why not France or Australia or something somewhere else, and then within the US, what particular institution they would like to go to. Being away in a different culture, especially when you know that you're coming back afterwards, is a wonderful thing. I would recommend it to anybody if they are able to if they're lucky enough to have the opportunity, because it gives you a certain distance to your own culture. One thing I would recommend almost anybody who likes reading or listening to music is to join the public library. I would also say buy a bicycle. In both places, that was after the public library, all 3 of us bought bicycles, and we sold them again. We didn't have a car in either place, and we managed fine. Of course, it depends very much where you are in the US. It has to be a reasonable public transport system. There was in both places I was, but I think, again, depending on where you are, a bike is a good way of getting around. Perhaps the last thing I would say with regard to advice for forthcoming or prospective applicants is, if you're going with a family, do put quite a bit of thought into where you're going to live. If you have children of school-going age, what schools they will go to. In my case, it worked out extraordinarily well, both accommodation-wise and school-wise. I was lucky, as well as having put some effort into the pre-planning, but I think the effort and pre-planning is indispensable.